Good morning, everyone.
You're on.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate the support. I think today is going to be a very informative day for you. We hope that it answers most of your questions, if not all. If they can't be answered today, we do have the resources for you to get to that person. Let me introduce and sort of go through the part of the day. I am Kathy O'Leary Garbarino. I am the chair for the event today. I'm also a past president of the board. We have Georgiana Diaz is my co-chair. She's floating around somewhere. But if you see any of us standing around with a badge or whatnot, you know that we can help you at some point. Just to go through the day a little bit. We're going to start off by some introductions. We're going to have 3 panels. As you can see here, the panelists will sit there. Each panel has a moderator. That moderator is to obviously move things along. They will speak as they see fit, as they think that it applies to any of us in the room. After that, each panel, you will have a 20-minute question and answer. We will have someone on the side here with a microphone. So raise your hand, please. We would like to do this orderly so that we're not here till 5 o'clock tonight. We will stay as long as your questions are needed. But again, it's going to be a long day. We have supplied you some water and granola bars, but that's it. So let me just say that not only do we have the panelists here, outside, when you walk out to your left, there are booths. In those booths, there are 6 government agencies, from FEMA to SBA to IRS to, who else is out there? Oh, building department, you're So any government agencies are outside in the booth. When you go out to the right and then the left, in the conference room, there will be insurance, attorneys, all specialists. There are about, right, there you go. A lot of bankers, and anything, questions that we think will relate to what you need. So you can feel free at any time. If you don't think anything on panel 1 pertains to you, you can walk around and you can help yourself. Or you can wait till after the questions and answers. Let me introduce, of course, Assemblywoman Nicole Maliatakis, who most of you know. You know this woman has been down in the dirt with you. So at this point, I'd like to turn this over to Nicole, say a few words for us, and then we'll begin.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. I know it's been a very stressful 5 months, and I'm with you here when I say it's been emotionally draining, physically draining, mentally draining for myself, my staff, my colleagues as well. It's been certainly difficult. But I will say that we finally see the light here of what government's going to be doing, which is good. There is a plan in place, which we've been calling for some time, and obviously New York City never experienced anything like this before, so it was a lot of work in progress as we were going forward. I'm pleased to say that the state budget passed last week, and though I didn't agree with a lot of it, there was $20.7 billion in there for Sandy rebuilding and Sandy, mostly for rebuilding of infrastructure, homes, the buyout program, et cetera. So that was the first sign, is that we're going to be getting the federal money. It's coming through the state and then down to us. On the state side, there's about $400 million that's going to be used for the buyout program, which currently is in Oakwood Beach. I want to explain a little bit about how it's all going to work in terms of, those of you that are outside of Oakwood Beach may be interested. Right now what it looks like is that there's a pilot program that will begin in Oakwood Beach, and that would be the buyout program, which would be pre-storm value. And if they're buying a whole area, a block I should say, it's 5%, I'm sorry, 10% above a bonus on top of that, and if you relocate, it's also a bonus involved. Now that relocate within the county, the exact county, so if you're going to stay on Staten Island. So right now the governor has declared this just for the Oakwood Beach section of Staten Island, certain blocks. However, there has been conversation, dialogue between the city and the state. I'm sure Pete Spencer will be able to give you more details during the discussion here. But what it looks like, there's an application that will be submitted to the state. So anyone who's interested in the buyout program submits this application to the state, and then it will be funneled down. So the state program is going to be for open space. So if they can add your land to, let's say, wetlands property or keep it for open space, then that would be part of the state buyout. If not, then it would go down funnel to the city, and the city will take your application, and that would be part of like a rebuilding effort. So they would buy the property, then resell it to someone to rebuild it to the standards of FEMA. So that's how it's looking right now. So for those of you that are still interested in a buyout and you do not live in the Oak Brook Beach section, you should contact my office or contact either my office, the Borough President's office, Councilman Otto's office. We're all taking lists of individuals who are interested, so we can send you the initial interest sign-up sheet to get you started in that process. Aside from that, I do want to talk a little bit also about the city grant applications that came, not application, but the action plan that was submitted recently. We had a 2-week period to comment. I submitted my comments along with others, and that ended on Thursday. There's a lot of detail in there, and you can still get it on the city website. I urge you to pull it up to see, you can get an idea. And it's about 100 and, how many pages is it?
190.
190 pages. It pertains to housing and businesses as well. And it gives you a good idea of what the next few months will start looking like and what will be available to you. Yes? It's on NYC.
NYC.gov, and right at the top, it says recovery. It's just right on the top of NYC.gov. Click on that, it's a link to the action plan.
Yeah.
.gov,
Yep.
recovery.
And that will give you an idea of what programs you will be entitled to going forward. Now, these are grant programs for the most part. These are grant programs, they're not loans, that's a good sign. This is where this federal money's coming. It's a pot of money that's coming down. A lot of it is going to, well, I guess the majority of it will be used to rebuild your home. So if you had, damage and you're going to stay, a lot of it's going to be specific to that. I think it has, many good aspects to it. I submitted a few comments, and a lot of it has to do with, the city came out and they did focus groups. They came to my office, they met with a couple of my constituents. We brought representatives from the various communities down, and they sat down and took their ideas and what they thought was needed and what kind of programs, what is most required by the community. So I think it's a pretty good start, and so they received about 600 comments, I'm told. And so they're going to go through that process right now of interpreting those comments, adjusting the plan, and then submitting it to the federal government. We have to get approval from the federal government before we can get the funds and start the process. So that's why a lot of it's taking time. So, but that's about that's the first 1.7 billion that the city's going to be getting, and about 700 million of that is going to be specific to housing, so primary residences. So that's I think a good thing. Aside from that, I'm really happy that Cyborg's doing this because these seminars are very important. I actually did a couple myself on various subjects throughout the last few months. We did mold remediation, we did insurance, we did tax deductions, things that you can write off, what you can't write off as a deduction for damage. And they were very well attended and I think very beneficial for the community. So I appreciate you continuing the dialogue and having it go forward. I don't want to take too much time, but I'm going to be sticking around for a little bit if you guys want to talk to me or have questions. I'll sit around and stick around for Q&A panel. Excuse me?
Is there a national grid? Are they still
Question. National Grid, I believe. Who applied for the National Grid? Anybody know about it? One person. Okay. Well, no. It was a National Grid did have a program where it was a $1,000 grant. If you had $3,000 worth of damage to your home and you had the receipts, the estimates from contractors or whatever, they would give you a $1,000 grant. I was processing the applications in my office. They had reached their cap though, and I don't know if that is reopened. It did reopen for a little bit, and then we had a waiting list, so we processed those. So I'm not sure if they're still taking it. I would call National Grid to ask them about it. If not, if they don't give you an answer, call my office. If they tell you they don't know what they're talking about, because it happens a lot, people, they call the 1-800 number and they're not really sure. But there is a National Grid. It is a $1,000 grant. Did you get your money yet? Okay, is that your question?
Yeah, I applied a long time ago. They closed it down.
They told me that the first batch of checks were going out in the next 15 days, and this was like 3 days ago. So I think there was an overwhelming request for this, and that's why it's taking so long. But also note that it's direct deposit, so it's not gonna be a check mailed to you, so that's another thing to be aware about.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Thank you. I'm going to ask that questions, please, be held on to the end of the panel so that we can have everybody covered and we don't hear and get everybody a chance up here to speak, so that some of these people may answer the questions that you have during the panelist, okay? Because at the end we will have 20 minutes and we'll have plenty of time. And again, everybody's around so you can take your own personal question, even though that was generalized because that was, P-SPAN. But let's just, move along so we're in a on the highway, not on the Forest Hill Road. I'm going to introduce the first moderator for the panelists. Is John Merlino. He is an attorney with the firm of Merlino and Gonzalez here and on Staten Island, and he is going to be the moderator for the first panel, which is financial. John?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just a show of hands, just to sort of help our panel through their where they should focus their discussions. By show of hands, how many of you are here because you're looking for basically information involving the government's response to Sandy? Okay. And how many of you are here because you're interested in learning about either purchasing or a home or selling your existing home and looking for information on the obstacles to that? All right, thank you. Our first speaker today is Brenda Stewart-Luke. She is a 34-year veteran of the Internal Revenue Service. She has worked in the Criminal Investigation Unit, Enforcement. She's been a manager in the Brooklyn office and in the Taxpayer Service Walk-in Unit. She currently works as the Stakeholder Liaison in the Small Business Self-Employed Operating Business Unit. Her job is to deliver key messages and educate the public and basically help taxpayers reduce the burden on the minutiae of regulations and just be a representative that can answer questions. So, Brenda, you're down first.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I'm very happy that I could be here with you. I work out of 290 Broadway. However, since Hurricane Sandy, I have been here in Staten Island. It has been my home for the past 5 months. I work at 290 Broadway, and currently I am at the disaster site at the Kia dealership at Highland Boulevard, so please stop by. We also are having an event this afternoon as well, and we're having the presentations in Russian, Spanish, and Mandarin to accommodate survivors that need the language, and we will also have these presentations on next Saturday as well as during the week. Hopefully, we're looking for Thursday as being the date. My role since Hurricane Sandy has been to give you an awareness of the tax relief obligations that IRS has. I am not a subject matter expert, but you do have subject matter experts such as a CPA. So basically what I am giving you is an awareness of tax liabilities or tax relief that you can get from the IRS. I have publications that are inside that can help you as well. Our information is found on the FEMA website as well as the IRS website on disaster relief. What we have is a disaster resource guide, and in that guide it makes you aware of the fact that you can deduct the loss or partial loss of personal or business use property in the tax year in which the event occurred, or you can actually go about amending your last year's tax return. Actually, how you would say, why could you amend or why would you amend your 2011 tax return? There's various reasons. And coming into the DRC, we have had various examples. Perhaps you did not have taxable income this tax filing season. However, last year you did. That could be a reason why you would want to amend your tax return. Also, it could be that you owe the IRS money. You have a balance due. That could be another reason why you would want to go about amending your last year's tax return. Again, this would reduce your taxable income. Also, with disaster assistance, IRS has waived the fee if you have lost your tax return. Normally, it would be $57 per tax return. However, due to Hurricane Sandy or because it's a presidential declared disaster, you can order your tax return. How would you do that? You would get a form 4506, and this would allow you to complete this document and send it to the IRS, and they would also forward you a copy of your tax return, waiving the fee of $57 per tax return. You could write across the top Hurricane Sandy in red. Also, you can get a transcript of your account. The reason you might need a transcript in the event that you needed to get a loan or needed to show proof of filing from the prior years. And that can be expeditiously done. And you can call our IRS hotline number for disaster. I will give you that telephone number. It's 1-866-562-5227. Someone is there 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. So if you have additional disaster questions, they will be able to help you. Also, if you have tax law questions that perhaps myself cannot answer, again, I'm not a subject matter expert, but we do have subject matter experts that will be able to handle your questions. This is for personal as well as for business. So I encourage you to pick up one of our publications I have inside the booklet, as well as to call the number if you have specific questions. Now, basically, the disaster booklet, what it talks about is how to show proof of your loss. You would want to reconstruct your records. You may ask, how do I reconstruct my records? I threw everything away. But so many of you have taken pictures for your insurance company to show that these items belong to you, because you would like to show these are your items. Also, we encourage you to go to appliance stores. But we have found out that appliance stores such as Sears, Best Buy, they have a record of you buying purchases from them. You can go back to them and ask them to give you a printout. So again, you would be able to prove that those items that you have belong to you. Well, if that doesn't work, you can always go on the internet and check, and you can try to purchase something or especially show that you had an item that looked of similar value or comparable to what you're looking up. Now, the reason that this is important is because IRS has another publication which is called a Casualty, Theft, and Loss Workbook. In that workbook, you are allowed to claim everything from room to room, item by item. You have to list those items. You're going to list the pre-market value as well as afterwards the depreciation. So it's important for you to take a look and take an inventory of what you lost. We also encourage people, because at times you may not be able to remember, you can even draw a picture. Think about the rooms that you have, the items that was in each room, to give yourself a visualization of the items that you lost. This goes, the book, publication 584, goes item by item, room by room. It even encourages you to, if you haven't received a market value for your car that you might have lost, you can actually list this item. So that is our publication 584. We have those publications in the back. And if I run out, you can always come to visit me at the disaster website, at the Disaster Center on Highland Boulevard. We also have information on publication 584 for businesses. You may say, well, what would I do? What would I do with a business? Well, it's the same thing. You would list your inventory that you lost, all the items that you lost, and we have a publication that would capture this information. Excuse me. We have a publication 547 that actually talks about the loss that you might have had and how we come up with the formula, which you're going to discuss with your accountant. Well, how does that work? It's 10% of your adjusted gross income plus the $100. You're going to go over this information with your accountant. All the information that you put down in this publication 584, your accountant is going to ask you for this information. I encourage you not to give the original documentations to your accountant, but you want to keep this information for yourself. You're going to say, why would I need all this? In the event if in the future that you might be audited by the IRS, you want to show proof. How did you come up with those figures? At the time, you might not remember. However, this publication will actually be a reminder. I encourage you to make copies of items that you have, the pictures that you have. If you go to Amazon or any kind of a place to get a receipt, you can staple it all together as a package in the event in the future that you're audited by the IRS. I encourage you, if you have not filed your tax return and you have not responded or received a total receipts from your insurance company, or you're still in the process of repairing, you can always file an extension with the IRS as well as the state. And this will allow you until October 15, 2013 to file your tax return. And if you filed your tax return already and you're looking at additional costs, you can always file a 1040X. So again, please do not forget, April 15th is coming very close. And you want to take advantage of actually the casualty and loss that you've had. If you do have additional questions, please speak to your accountant. A lot of this information is going to seem very foreign, but your accountant is very much aware. And if he does not have the publication, which he may not because we haven't had this type of disaster here in New York, please feel free to stop at the disaster site as well as we can go to the website. So thank you very, very much, and I'm available for a small period of time to answer questions because, again, I am doing a presentation at the disaster site. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brenda. If anyone needs an excellent accountant, we conveniently have John Chow here from the, John's a partner at the accounting firm of DeSantis, Kiefer, Shall, and Sarcone. He's going to talk about tax issues post-Sandy. He specializes in income tax planning and preparation for individuals and small to mid-sized entities. He's also a partner in the financial services firm of DKS Advisory Group, LLP. He specializes in high net worth individuals and working in multi-generational businesses in succession planning. So everyone please welcome John.
Thank you, John. First, I have to thank Ms. Luke for handling my presentation for me. I believe she's handled most of the topics I was going to cover. My second observation is thank you for sitting me next to a criminal investigator. We've exchanged business cards. A couple of things I just want to touch on because in terms of how the losses are deducted, I think Ms. Luke has done an excellent job of presenting exactly what individuals, how they should proceed with claiming a loss. In this case, this clearly fits the definition of a casualty loss. The hurricane was a sudden event and unexpected. If you do have a loss, again, each loss is calculated separately. So in other words, your real property, your home, you calculate the amount of that loss. That generally is defined as the appraised value before the storm and the appraised value immediately after. Now, most people I know did not anticipate having this situation, so very few people did an appraisal before. So simply what the IRS will accept is the cost of the actual repairs. That will be the loss. Now, since this was declared by the President to be a catastrophic event, Ms. Luke correctly indicated that you could file an amended return for the prior year. And again, I found in my practice people have been doing that, particularly when their income is substantially lower in that year. If the loss which is calculated is so substantial that it results in negative income for the year, you can actually file what's called amended returns for 2 prior years. That's creating what they call net operating loss, and apply those losses to actually 2010 and 11 as well as the year 2012. A couple of things I want to cover too, and I have handouts which will be in the conference room. I've had a good number of people through my office that have experienced this loss. The common questions that we have, and somewhat confusing, is people assume because they have insurance that they're not entitled to a casualty loss. Clearly you are entitled to a casualty loss. However, the amount of the insurance. Maybe shut that one there. Okay, that's better. So if you do have insurance, the actual loss is reduced by the amount of the insurance. Now, what's key about that is many of you probably, with the filing deadline a week away, have not heard specifically from your insurance company, but the IRS does require you to determine how much insurance will be reimbursed to you, and that will reduce the amount of the loss. If in the event you cannot determine what the loss or reimbursement is from the insurance company, subsequently next year you do receive a payment you did not anticipate, that has to be reported as income on your 2013 return. Another common question we've had has to do with gifts. So many of you who have had losses, I know in our case, we had an employee in our office who lost a home. We as the employer made a payment to her to help her. Then the question came up, is that part of her salary? Or, what exactly is it? Again, since this was declared by the president to be a catastrophic event, that payment by the employer is not income. In a similar fashion, if you get gifts from different organizations or from friends and family, even if you use that money to do the actual repairs, that is not also subject to income tax. One thing which I had anticipated, which has not occurred as yet, is in previous catastrophes such as Katrina, Congress intervened and passed bills which said basically when you calculate the casualty loss, you would not have to reduce it by the $100 that Ms. Luke mentioned, and also 10% of your adjusted gross income. As of today, I haven't heard anything relating to that. And again, since we're this far along, I don't think that that's something that will occur. John, what I'd like to do is, again, just later, I'll be around for questions. Be glad to answer. Thank you.
For the first 20 years of his career, Donald worked on Wall Street, and the last 10 of those, he's been helping his clients obtain credit for personal and for business purposes. Today, he's going to discuss how you can improve your credit following Hurricane Sandy. Donald?
Hello, everyone. In the conference room, you'll have 2 sheets. My focus today is going to be on how you can get your credit reports and also how you can. The first form, which is this one, which you'll have access to, it's from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Fill this out, it's totally free, and you'll be able to get your credit reports. Unfortunately, you won't get your credit score, but you will get your credit reports. The second, yes, a little higher, sorry about that. Okay. Now, a lot of you have heard from Experian, you have Equifax, TransUnion. They all have different numbers, ranging from 300 to 850. You have Equifax, which ranges from 280 to 850. You have plus scores, which range from 330 to 830. And a new one, which is made up by Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, called the Advantage Score. Now, whichever score you get, there's going to be 3 of them. And let's talk about specifically right now how to raise your credit score. The easiest thing to do if you have a credit card is to lower your balance. There's what's called a credit utilization rate. And you want to keep that rate at 30% or lower. Basically, it's the credit used divided by the credit limit. So if you see on this form, let's just a moment. The credit used, or the credit limit for this person who has a MasterCard, it's 80%. That's high, extremely high. You want to have it at 30% or lower. The Visa card, which has a credit limit of $1,000, the available credit is $700. For this person, that's okay. You have a credit utilization of 30%, and that's good. The Discover card, credit limit of $2,000, available credit $1,700, credit used $300. Again, you have a credit utilization of 15%. Now, by itself, having a low credit utilization rate, that will lower your score. If you have it high, that will, if you have it, yes, the reverse, thank you so much. If you have it low, that will raise your score. If you have it high, that will lower your score. The total, and this is for you guys who are about to purchase a home, the total is 28%. Now, even though that's good, overall, it's bad because of this guy. You want to lower your credit utilization rate. Now, lastly, and this is most important, when you get back your credit reports, you're going to have 3 scores. They call it a low score, a mid score, and a high score. The banks normally take what's called a mid score. So this person, even though they have a credit score of 610, 645, and 725, their actual score is 645. Now the goal is to raise your credit score. Instead of working on all 3 scores, work on 2. Specifically, the mid score. So if this is, let's say, from Experian or Equifax, work specifically on that. You want to get this mid score a lot higher. Once you do, you'll have a new mid score, 685, 725, that stays the same, and you have a higher credit score. That's what you can do very simply to get your credit score higher. Now, we'll be next door, and if you folks have any questions, we are here. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Our next speaker is Marissa Stern. She's an attorney at the law firm of Jack Stern. She's also a graduate of New York Law School, and before that, George Washington University. The firm has been on Staten Island for 36 years, with a general practice focusing mostly on residential and commercial real estate transactions, estate planning, elder law, and civil litigation. Marissa?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here and allowing me to speak. My topic today, I was going to talk generally about closing costs when you're selling or purchasing a home. Since Sandy, a few things obviously have changed. The cost of homeowners insurance, depending on the area where the house is located, obviously, as many of you well know, has greatly increased, and that adds a lot to your closing costs when you're purchasing a home. Also, when you're going to buy a home and you're going for a mortgage, banks want documentation of the money that you're going to be using to purchase the home. So if you're getting money from an insurance company or from FEMA, or maybe a relative is gifting you some money to purchase a new home, make sure you keep documentation of where that money came from. The banks want paper trails. They don't want you to just walk in and say, you know, my aunt gave me $50,000 to help me buy this house. It'll make things a lot easier if you're prepared with the paper trail, a gift letter from the relative who's giving you the money, paperwork from the insurance company, from FEMA, things like that, your bank statements. Closing costs can be pretty expensive when you're purchasing a home. One thing many buyers can do to help alleviate that cost is try to build some of those costs into the mortgage when you're purchasing a home. So what we do is we put a seller's concession in the contract. And basically that means we raise the purchase price of the house. It's legal, it's allowed, everyone knows about it, banks know about it, the government knows about it. But so if you're purchasing a house, let's say for $220,000, you could raise the purchase price to $230,000 to include an extra $10,000 in your mortgage in order to help you pay for some of those closing costs. And closing costs here in New York, you have mortgage tax when you take out a mortgage. And the purchase of a home up to $499,000 is 1.8% of the purchase price. Over $500,000 is 1.925% of the purchase price. So that's one of the big closing costs. Then you have your various bank fees, everything the bank charges to give you a loan, their bank attorney's fees, their origination fees, appraisal fees on the property, and things like that. So many times putting a concession into the contract can really help buyers out when they're purchasing a home. The only condition to be aware of with that is the property has to appraise for the higher value. So if you're adding $10,000 to the purchase price, the property has to appraise at that, let's say $230,000. And if it doesn't, you'll have to lower the amount to whatever it has appraised at. So that's always a consideration to keep in mind. If you don't think the property will appraise for that value, then you might not want to go ahead with that. Another thing that will affect many of you if you're selling your home and you've had significant storm damage, most buyers will do a home inspection. And a lot of those things will come up on the home inspection. And as a seller, you have to be prepared to either fix a lot of the problems before the purchase will go through, or lower your sale price, or give the buyers a credit so that when they purchase the home, they can then fix whatever those issues are that came up in the home inspector's report. What else? Unfortunately, I don't know of many programs, other than the governmental programs, to help out with closing costs in buying your home or selling your home. I wish I could give you more information on that, but our office, we try to work with all of you to keep your costs low and help out as much as possible. And just to be aware, when you're selling your home, New York takes a little bit of your profit. There's a New York State transfer tax and a New York City transfer tax that all sellers of residential real estate have to pay. The city transfer tax is 1% of the purchase price, and the state transfer tax is $4 for every 1,000 of the purchase price. So that's also something to be aware of when you're selling your property. If you're selling and then you plan to go buy something else, just be aware that that's going to lower your profit from the sale of your home. I think I'll wrap it up there. I have some handouts that I'll leave in the other room, and I'll certainly be around if anyone has any questions about selling or purchasing a house. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Our last speaker for panel one has come to us from the Mayor's Office of Housing and Recovery. It's Peter Spencer. He's the Director of Communications, and he's here to talk to you about the New York City Plan of Action in response to Hurricane Sandy. Peter?
Thank you. Actually, call it the action plan. How's everybody doing? So, just want to tell you a little bit about what the Housing Recovery Office does, and then, of course, the big thing right now, I'm sure you've probably heard about the action plan. Talk a little bit about what that is and what that means to homeowners. First of all, we were created right after the storm struck New York City to basically with a simple goal, which is quite a difficult goal, is to get everyone who's had a home or been in a home before Sandy struck back to a permanent, stable home. So there's a lot of